Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you very much for joining this event. And I would like to thank Minister of Foreign Affairs for organizing things and really thinking about changing the National Action Plan, because the situation that have come up with the war really needs to be addressed in this document. And I would like to thank also Working Group on Gender Realities in OSCE region for this prompt reply, and OSCE, I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion, and your comments to this National Action Plan would be very important. Two things I would like to speak about this war, because, you know, the war changed completely environment here. During this war, the weapons that has been used against civil population, the indiscriminate attacks that have been used against civil population were very dangerous, leaving footprints for many, many years, uprooting so many people from their home, about 90,000 people, and only 46,000 have been able to return back. Others, because of the plan, because of the ceasefire decision, they cannot return back to their homes because they cannot have homes. It brought lots of new realities, which needs to be addressed. First of all, it's brought a new borders that people cannot go back to their home and they would have new neighborhood. Secondly, it brought, you know, a peacekeeping forces, and for me it's always an issue because they are unsanctioned and there are no, so to say, rules and status of peacekeeping forces. As I worked for many years with peacekeeping forces in many countries, so I'm very concerned about this issue also. And I think that the civil population should be really informed about their role and functions and protection. And also, you know, very important issue, of course, we speak about, there are lots of things that we'll speak during this discussion, but also important issue, the women's role that has been changed during the war. Women have done tremendous work assisting soldiers, assisting army, organizing, fantastically well organized groups, but also they changed their role, taking some leadership roles because the country was facing existential danger. A woman stood next to men, next to their brothers, fathers, in order to save their land. It was a strong leadership role of women. It was not a militarism, it was not a war, it was standing next because there was a big problems that facing the country. So these are issues, and there are, of course, Karine would bring many, many issues related to the plan, and I would, with great pleasure, giving floor to Karine Sujan. Karine.
Thank you, Gulnara. Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this very important discussion. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us. As you are rightly mentioned, the situation is changed, and now it's extremely challenging to see the condition in which the people of Artsakh found themselves due to their recent aggression. And I want to underline that the 2/3 of the population of Nagorno-Karabakh is currently displaced. But before to go in more detail, I want to say just a few words about our National Action Plan and the preparation process of the 2019-21 National Action Plan of Armenia. Armenia approved this first National Action Plan and its implementation timetable for fulfillment of provisions on UN Security Council Resolution Women and Peace and Security in February 2019. Thus, Armenia became the 18th UN member state to have adopted a 1325 National Action Plan. In September 2017, according to Prime Minister decision, an interministerial commission was established to develop this National Action Plan, and this commission consists from members of different state bodies, as well as include the civil society and NGO representatives, plus representative of Armenian Red Cross. So I want to say special thanks to UNFPA because just a few days ago we published the brochure on implementation of National Action Plan, and we can find this brochure in Armenian and English on our website www.mfa.am. I want to underline that the basic objective of National Action Plan of Armenian National Action Plan on 1325 is to support and monitor the implementation of Resolution 1325 and promote it at all levels, first locally through strengthening the gender awareness of local population, nationally as a part of government human rights protection strategy, because its implementation was included within our national human rights strategy, as well as internationally through active involvement of Armenia in activities of international organizations engaged in areas covered by this resolution. I want to stress that this National Action Plan also prepared in implementation of Armenia's commitment under the CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, as well as we received some recommendations according to our Universal Periodic Review process. So the National Action Plan for us became a valuable tool to implement our commitments towards the women, peace and security. And this also an opportunity to identify priorities, determine responsibilities, allocate resources, and initiate strategic actions within a defined time frame to deliver policies and programs that respond to the needs and priorities of conflict-affected women. I want to underline that the Armenian National Action Plan is adopted through a government decision. It's adopted on February 28th, as I mentioned, 2019, thereby ensuring political responsibility for implementing and follow-up of the plan. And various ministries and agencies participated in preparation of this plan, as well as we cooperated actively with our non-governmental organizations and civil society representatives. NAP is built on 4 fundamental pillars: prevention, protection, participation, relief, and recovery. And in the context of measures of strengthening and implement the 1325, I want to say just very briefly the main points of this action plan: to encourage exchange of experience on national, regional, and international level, cooperate with civil society, conduct joint activities of all the involved in the promotion of NAP measures, including public campaigns, and develop a system of reporting of NAP implementation. As I said, the National Action Plan includes the 3-year period between 2019 and 2021, but this is a living document, and we can change it in according to the situation. And as I mentioned, the fact of aggression made us start to work on revising the National Action Plan. We have, unfortunately, the new reality, and we should reflect this new reality in this National Action Plan. We have displaced families. Thousands of displaced families face today shortage of food, water, access to medical care. Today, there is a necessity to implement individual social, economic, and rehabilitation programs, including social psychological rehabilitation for women and girls residing in conflict-affected settlements, as well as women that have been forced to move to Armenia. I want to underline our approach as a country which is a strong supporter of universality of human rights and the equal, non-discriminatory, non-selective approach, as it emphasizing Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that adherence to this principle as a key in the context of humanitarian response, when assistance should be provided to civilians affected by hostilities on the ground. And women of Nagorno-Karabakh and people of Nagorno-Karabakh are reality on the ground, and social programs of Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh and humanitarian crisis in NK must be addressed in order to ensure a speedy return to normal life. Armenia, as an elected member of Human Rights Council for 2020-22, has highlighted among its commitments the implementation of National Action Plan and the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, and considering it's instrumental in terms of protecting the women living in conflict zones and ensuring their active contribution to peace building and post-conflict reconstruction and rehabilitation. So I think that jointly we can really react to these new challenges, to this new reality, and to adapt this new program, revised program, according to these new challenges. So thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Karina. It was really, you put very well the pillars and the basis of our National Action Plan. Of course, the government has already done a lot to assist victims of this war, and many have been returned back, and there is also assistance provided by Russian government to them. But of course, this is an ongoing process, and this should be addressed. And civil society organizations have been doing, again, tremendous work. Like our organization has been providing online training for young women on psychological support that they go later and to train others in how to assist victims of this war, and also humanitarian assistance. And I know many have been doing this, but I think plan will encompass all of the important aspects of, and target real needs. And I'm very happy that today we have really outstanding experts from different parts of the world who can assist us in really addressing these needs in a comprehensive way. And I think this kind of tradition might be the first for our group, but might become a new process. So who would like to take a lead from our group? Heidi?
I can try to ask people also to speak, and just 2-3 words concerning our group. I suppose the ministry is informed already about a little bit of our group. We are existing since 4 or 5 years now, and for me the enormous advantage is that we are sharing localized expertise with international commitments. And in my case, coming from so-called non-conflict country, but being responsible from Germany, being responsible somehow also for conflicts in the world through their participation, active participation or non-participation and non-involvement. I think we have this chance to bring also in a historical line the expertise into the debates, because women's involvement in this field is existing since more than 100 years, not just in my organization, WILP, but women, when they fought for their voting rights, they at the same time, many of them linked it immediately to anti-war prevention and anti-violence prevention. And this, I think, is important. And I fully share your concerns about the first, a living document is always important in this continuous development, but also the way of adapting it to the concrete needs on the place. So I think we are all responsible to give you good ideas, which we then share, and then it's up to you to adapt it to your political commitments also. And this is why I think we have just, I don't know who would like to start from the working group to say a word regarding the specific needs of advocacy and of commenting what the problems you have. I don't know, Annemarie or Luisa, or who would like to start? Or
I can say a few words, even though, hi everybody. First, I'm really very happy to see you all, almost all. Some of you are not with the video. Maybe I stuck too much to the send out National Action Plan draft. But anyway, I think the last point Heidi was just making is, I think, extremely critical and key. How can we take the everyday life, the daily life of women as a point of departing? So I think we have to be very aware of how women do define their security, how they live their insecurity, where are the main challenges in not being able to live a secure life, because the daily life is not just about weapons and physical violence, it's about much more. And having this as a main scope, or as a main, as a main logical frame, then we also are more concise in defining measures to change. Because I think with these NAPs we risk to lose ourselves in very specific measures, in police, in awareness raising activities, and the financial support is mainly paying these activities. And then we lose a little bit the context and the long-term development processes. And I think this is maybe the challenge working with this kind of NAPs. It's living document, but what does it mean in terms of monitoring, in terms of transparency? It's a good word to call it living document, but for me it's not enough to have it called living document. So what, for example, I think is very important to have a very short time perspective. How many women are coming back? How many women are victims of violence, etc.? How do they have access to immediate care, to immediate therapy, to immediate medical therapy? But then we also have to think, and from our experience with the reloaded Women, Peace, Security report, I think the long-term perspective is much more reflected in the budgets, in the financial flows, in the structural composition of, be it the security department, the domestic department, whatever. So if we can see if we analyze carefully the financial flows, if there is some changes in investment, is there some change in investing more in social infrastructure than in hard militarizing security issues? And for example, the police is, for me, still one of the best examples from from the point of view of gender budgeting, what does it mean when we really want more security, security given also through the police? It's not just having more police women or having more women going to the police, etc. It's about the time use. And I was just rethinking what was analyzed then in Southern Africa, that it's important that the police personnel is well trained, of course, but still it's not enough. To measure the long-term effect of a women peace security NAP means to look at structural changes. This could be a shift in appreciation and upgrading of certain activities in terms of wages, time budget, and promotion. Time use and value approach looks at the shifts in time and value in all activities to increase women's security, options for protection, accessibility of community police, possibilities for women, and this is important to report and to be heard also as reporting individuals. So I think only 3, 4, 5 years time when we carefully analyze the budgets called security, improving security of women, then we understand if there has been really improvement for the situation of women. And the other thing, of course, is also the economic empowerment. I'm not so convinced about what you are explaining in the National Action Plan, because we have so many experience how women empowered economically are then at the end of the day victims of exploitation. They exploit themselves or they're exploited by the labor market. If there is no change in labor market dynamics, be it training, be it professional education, etc. So I think even the idea is good, but to be very sincere, I think it's not just about having more women as economically active individuals. It's having also a society which is capable of integrating more people in as productive individuals, be it women or men. So just a few, I think at the end of the day, it's also the woman is not just an individual, it's part of the society. Her role as a citizen should not be forgotten, because then the community development after a war, in post-war rebuilding, then the society must be rebuilt by citizens and not just by individual women and men. So far, some ideas.
Okay.
Very much, Annemarie. Thank you. Maybe Luisa.
Yeah.
Who else? Or you?
Perhaps we should take up an example from a situation in conflict with a lot of conflict experiences also to comment. See, we have Oksana and we have Maria from Ukraine. Perhaps this, and then we go back to Western Europe. Both and Oksana also participated in one of the webinars we had already to comment our 1325 commitment. Oksana, would you like to jump in?
Hello, colleagues, and thank you for this space. I also take a look at the action plan that was sent out, and I want to comment and support the comments about the budget and the resources, because also Ukrainian experience shows that when the plan is not budgeted by the state, then it becomes mostly the instrument of international organizations funding it. And it shifts really the focus of commitment and ownership. I see that there is a column here about state budget being the source of funding, but for me, it's also a matter of commitment and accountability for who gives the money for this. I think it's often the case that civil society takes a lot of leadership, and partnering with international organizations and international donors, implements a lot of activities, but then the state is only reporting on it as an executor. So in some of the recommendations that we have been developing, it's this very close cooperation of civil society and state actors together is important in order for the state actors to also be more aware of what is the 1325 agenda. So if there are trainings, if there are awareness raising events, is it possible to conduct them in mixed groups, for example, when there are civil servants and local activist groups and maybe international organizations together, building trust, communication, exchanging experience. This would be sort of a cross-cutting comment about capacity building and ensuring sustainability. I also wanted to support the thesis about looking in a broader term about human security of populations in conflict-affected contexts. I understand that certain immediate needs in a very active phase of conflict or right after it may be different from longer-term needs. But looking at security from a holistic perspective, in my understanding, also means possibly engaging a broader sphere of state actors beyond the security sector. In some cases, you have Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labor and Social Policy as implementers, but only for limited number of activities. And to me, it also shows that sort of the main logic of this plan is still within foreign policy and security and defense policy, which I think, again, can be expanded. In terms of economic security, I want to bring to your attention a document that was published by Kvinna till Kvinna last year. It's a very comprehensive report about women peace builders advocacy, and women's economic rights in conflict and post-conflict contexts is one of the main advocacy that they are trying to bring to the highest level. Perhaps this document can be for you a reference also if you want to take that up as a more expansive point. Right now we are working in Ukraine on analyzing the human security of women in conflict zones, overlapping with COVID context, but also in the proximity of conflict areas. And we are seeing how much economic security is interconnected with food security, with medical security, with childcare, education, especially online. The ability to buy a computer or technology, to own it. A lot of things are dependent now on economic security. So this is, in my opinion, a more long-term perspective that also needs to be taken into account. And one last comment I would make, which is more around the area of communications and discourse. I didn't see specifically here in the plan actions around this, and I don't have any very specific recommendations on what this action could be. Maybe I will think about it during our conversation. But what I wanted to say that what we're seeing in Ukraine right now, maybe Maria will agree with me, maybe she has a different perspective, is that it is the reality of war is also changing the discourse of how we talk about democracy, plurality, human rights, and certain groups become more marginalized, polarized. So communicating the importance of diversity, of understanding that everybody's rights are equal, even or especially in context of conflict, I think is an important communication element of women, peace and security agenda, of shaping the discourse. In Ukraine, this is fueled by the polarization created by far-right groups, where we are seeing two very big polarities between women's rights and LGBT rights on the one hand, and then conservative groups saying that this is unpatriotic. So maybe in different contexts, different polarities emerge, but as also I'm learning now in my master's program, that this is what conflict does. It polarizes groups around different identities. Gender identity and ethnic identity are often those that become very the center of the focus. And I think it should be part of the Women, Peace and Security agenda to keep to help us move away from the binary and from this polarization, and bring back the idea of plurality, intersectionality, equality of rights for all, especially for those that are most marginalized. So you probably know what is the best way to integrate this in your context, either through training or communication campaign. But I just wanted to say that from Ukrainian context, the discourse of public officials or very visible and very noted civil society actors influences a lot how people think about war and how people think about dealing with consequences of war. Thank you. I hope that was useful.
Thank you.
I will add just two small things according to domestic violence. Yes, I agree with Oksana that war is influenced all part of our life, especially in this different kind of violence sphere. And domestic violence, we have the problem that even one of the reasons that we still not ratified Istanbul Convention is that our authorities think that the domestic violence is typical issues for families where one of the family members went back from the war, military families, and it's not patriotic if we will take this person to the court and okay. And the second one is the issue of issues of housing. It's according to this economical security, which Oksana told you. And yes, it's one of our main problems for IDPs women to find some sustainable decision for them according to their housing, because it's the main problem. And after solving this problem, the solution for other one is much more easier to find. That's all from my side for this moment.
Who else? Luisa, to get into a totally different context.
Yes. Thank you very much, first of all, for this opportunity. It's a really good one, since we are all involved somehow in advocacy also at national level. Also my country, we just finalized the first Italian National Action Plan, and so I would like to share with you some comments. From my point of view, of course, I hope you will forgive me if I make some reference just to underline the value and the common challenges. So first of all, I would like to say what I really appreciated is starting from the introduction. I will try to be very brief, but I really appreciate that this National Action Plan presents a women, peace and security agenda as a peace and security issue. This is not, unfortunately, anymore an assumption. We are more and more looking, at least in my country, we are moving towards women's rights and protection. And so finally, I could see in your priorities this of course, because of your experience, but the plan is very much focused on conflict resolution and peace building, and it sounds great to me. About the introduction is very short, and I would like to share with you our experience. In our introduction in my country, there are also some points regarding the approach. And for instance, we mentioned the multi-stakeholder approach. We want to, Italy wanted to adopt looking at this issue. So civil society organizations are also included in the, in the preamble, like meaning this is something, so I wonder how much civil society organizations have been involved in this process. But if it was the case, like it was for us, it would be great to see some reference about this process in the introduction, so the readers, as me, can understand from the very beginning that it was the result of a common effort. Regarding the plan, I won't go into details of all the pillars, but I would like to underline how much I was happy to see your framework is based on 1325 pillars. This is not, again, something that we can take as assumed, because, for instance, in my country, I've been struggling a little bit in 10 years of advocacy for having a pillar dedicated to prevention with no success. So it's very good to see you adopted the 1325 approach, and so it's very coherent. Because, for instance, we have one building dedicated to the armed forces and the other one are thematic. But in your national action plan, pillars are very coherent with each other. And also this reference to conflict prevention, I would like to suggest to push it a bit further, meaning it is focusing on 1325, but it could be extended just in case you think it could be opportune, or at least in implementation, to prevention of conflict, more in general. And for instance, this summer I had this international exchange, and I've seen that in Lebanon, they have this prevention pillar very strong in their NAP, and they have foreseen this capacity building for all stakeholders and for women in particular, with early warning networks at community level preview in the National Action Plan. I would have loved to see to have the same reference in our country, and I hope you can. Yeah, it's just an idea, and I hope you will forgive for this suggestion so precise. And just two other words. The first one, more technical. The first one is about the indicator, which are always a challenge in national action plans. I also see we have this common challenge. We also have some general indicators, and I've seen you also have in your plan. So please work together for a better definition of the indicators. And let me suggest to use, of course, the 2010 annex to the UN Secretary General report, but for instance, in particular for prevention, the UN guidelines, and also if you feel to get inspired also by the European Union, the new strategic approach of the European Union have a very great approach, very open, very involving men, very with the intersectionality and very good indicators. Last point will be about monitoring. I don't see anything about monitoring system. I don't know if I was mistaken somehow. I read it quite carefully, but I really recommend, because you are, as far as I know, adopting your first national action plan. And since we are at the fourth one, I see what we really miss is to build on previous experiences. And the reason why we cannot really build on past national action plan implementation is because we don't have a real monitoring and reporting mechanism. And I really recommend, we have some reports, but it's based on self-monitoring. I really recommend to reach in my country as well to have an independent external, maybe civil society monitoring body. That was all, the budget was already discussed. And I really agree, taking some couple of points of what has been discussed already, that it would be a very useful point to reflect together from troop contributing countries to countries receiving peacekeeping, the issue of peacekeeping, which was since the very beginning of Women, Peace and Security agenda, very deeply rooted in this kind of policies. So we cannot avoid discussing this issue. And I'm ready to share my experience with you. And I'm trying to do the same exercise together with people from Lebanon and Iraq. So if somebody is interested, we can open also with the exchange with other countries. And yeah, that's all. Thank you. And sorry if I have taken too long.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Who else? I think Tolikan. Yeah, just.
Hello, thank you so much for this discussion, and especially to Armenia and my friends, because special for Caucasus friends, because it's post-war situation, and we understand about this real tragedy. And thank you for this draft of the plan, 1325, and I joined to my friends, sisters, because Gulnara, maybe some country create very nice, beautiful plan for in paper, but very important to localize this plan from community level. And this is our experience, because look, we have revolution in October, and our politicians in the city say, hey, why? But before, we didn't talk and distribute them our experience and research and say, hey, you forget local, regional level. People very upset. People don't know about very nice plan activities. They don't participate. It means it will be a new action plan with new strategy. And same Louisa talk about, we should think about participatory. And from local level, and of course, if you build in community level some very active, nice group for monitoring, for adaptation, it will be useful for national level and for advocacy level, and it will be for you also easy to collect a lot of different risk and disaster conflicts, because they call, you participate, they are happy, they came to cities, they call you. It means you should have very nice community level activists who really understand, and you educate maybe some training for trainers or expert for experts, I don't know, but you should adapt this action plan in a rural area. It will be very good for growing, not for vertical, for horizontal, and have a lot of supporters from different groups, and it's my only suggestion. And also second, I agree with some our experts who talk about independent evaluation, because if you evaluate in country level, it means sometimes we lose our, sometimes we close our eyes and say, oh, okay, it will be not problem. But if you practice and invite some expert from for example, from women groups. Finally, it will be very useful to evaluate and identify some new international, very useful and nice and best practice for next adaptation, and also have supporters from different countries. It also gives some more space to collect and unite civic or women solidarity network. And finally, Armenian case is not only Armenian case. I recommend to evaluate this action plan through SWOT analysis, because you should understand not only from different opponents, but from country level. For example, ODKB or ODKB, you know, this network, Belarus, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, authoritarian regime. And they don't interested for peacemaking or women solidarity network. Of course, this Musculian politics give different new problems. That's where you should be very attentive who will be supporters, who will give problems, but also work with them to prevent some future problems. Thank you. I love you, all of you.
Thank you, Telekan. Thank you.
Learn a lot from you, because our country also tried to discuss about new action plan for 2025. Thank you so much. You will become expert for Kyrgyzstan.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody who wants to talk, or we should give floor to Karine? Karine, do you have comments?
Yes, I have some comments. Thank you very much for colleagues for very interesting recommendations, starting from the assessment needs to assess the concrete needs on the place, and raising issues of security. Yes, this is the really very huge huge number of issues, and we should address these issues as my colleagues mentioned, starting with assessment of daily lives and financial support, reflection of needs in our budget. But we of course understand that we are in post-conflict situation, and the country faces social and economic difficulties, and I'm not sure that it will be possible to really receive some financial assistance from state budget, but we will try. Economic empowerment is also a very important aspect, and among the priorities of our National Action Plan. You raised a very important issue of the monitoring and reporting mechanism, and I want to inform that the reporting and monitoring process goes through the collection of some annual reports from different state and state bodies and our civil society partners, and we submit this report to the government for approval. But we can think about maybe changing this practice and to study the experiences of some countries in monitoring and reporting mechanisms. A very important recommendation on the necessity of localization of this National Action Plan on community level. We will try to do this. A multi-sectoral approach is also very important. Thank you for the recommendations related to necessity to reflect in more detail about our aims and activities in preambular part of the documents. We will study also the experience of Lebanon as recommended and to strengthen maybe the conflict prevention part as well. So I took note all these recommendations. Thank you very much, and I hope we will keep in touch for the activity and for the cooperation. Thank you.
Are there any other people? Anki, would you like to speak also? Thank you, Karine.
No, I'm not much to add, but I can just say that in the Swedish NAP, they will have the gender issue on all levels and also included in the ordinary work, so not just for the specific issue. And they also point out that training is very important, and also for on all levels, and police department and military and organizations and all different departments. And I think also it's very important when you talk about social, on the non-governmental organizations, to include all kinds of organizations, not only women's groups. So that's the one point. And the Sweden, from the
We cannot hear you anymore.
Also point out when you make what did I say? No, that the responsibility is very clear who is responsible for follow-up and monitoring, because they say
In Sweden or Armenia?
earlier that it has been divided between different, also in, you can't hear me? You hear me?
It's very difficult, the connection.
I don't know. No, but the last thing I said, it's very important who is responsible, because we have seen in Sweden earlier that on, so it's responsible to know. And I think that's, no, also Sweden wants to be more concrete. Now, we don't have conflict in our country, but we support other countries, and they have now limited the countries they will support, because to be more have the possibility to be more concrete and really do something. I think that's all.
Super. Perhaps, I don't know, Graziella or Sandra or Jonna, yeah?
Thank you, Heidi, and thank you very much, Gulnara, for this invitation and for the opportunity also to listen from the distinguished representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We know each other because we work very often together, but for those who do not know me or my colleague Jonna, we represent ODIHR, that's the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights of the OSCE, based in Warsaw. And specifically, we work within a program that supports OSCE participating states to integrate a so-called human rights compliant perspective to security, and a gender sensitive one. So we work with security sector institutions, including, for example, the law enforcement, but also the armed forces, but we also work with the oversight of the security sector, which includes, for example, ombuds institutions, which includes civil society organizations as an important watchdog. Now, when it comes to Armenia, we are very much engaged in the country, also within the framework of the Armenian Cooperation Program. And within that program, we have a project. It is called Strengthening Security Sector Governance in the Republic of Armenia, led by the OSCE Secretariat, where ODIHR has a dedicated task working together with the Human Rights Defender's Office. And the reason why I stress this is to say also that the human rights basis of 1325 should be given proper visibility and highlight. We are certainly happy and ready to support you also in a systematic way. In the development of this new version of the National Action Plan, to make it also fit to the new realities which have emerged during the autumn. And we would also be ready to assist you when it comes to the implementation. So both in terms of like strategizing, but also operationalizing. So for example, selected support to the police or to other security sector institutions, to the armed forces. And then also what I would like to emphasize is the need to link all the work that is being done and reconnect it to 1325 National Action Plan. There are lots of, for example, human rights, civil society organizations working on areas that are also bordering, the underlying rationale of 1325. And I'm happy that Luisa stressed the need to incorporate and mainstream prevention throughout this NAP, because we often see that also the persistent violation of human rights can be a trigger of conflict. And of course, we do hope that the situation remains peaceful in Nagorno-Karabakh, but we know already now that there are several triggers of conflict that need to be addressed at the very early stages. So again, this is to reiterate that we are happy to come back to you also in a systematic manner, offering suggestions for the NAP. We can also do it within the next few days, because we understand that this is indeed something urgent. So we would be happy to do that. We also cover prevention of sexual and gender-based violence, which is perhaps something that is under the radar screens now, and needs to be still, be kept, in front of us as we proceed. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity, and we are here to support you.
Thank you very much, Graciela. Are there any others who would like to talk? And
I think Jonna wanted to.
I have a feeling Graciela largely covered a lot what I was thinking to mention too. I do want to just highlight the importance of budgeting national action plans as well. I personally, in my previous role with UN Women, I used to support the National Action Plan development for Jordan, as well as coordinate some of the other countries in the region. And what we saw was that the simple fact of budgeting the plan already raised the awareness of the government partners that they need to look at their fundings and they need to look at their budgeting and need to allocate funds for the implementation. Because otherwise it risks too much of staying as a plan without full realization that you need funds to implement it as well. So that is a really warm recommendation from not so much of now as an ODIHR, but of my past role in supporting this. And another one, it would be to look at what does participation mean. I kind of really quickly looked at it, and it said a lot about women's participation. And oftentimes, especially with security sector stakeholders, they take this as women in the armed forces or women in the police. But certainly it's about women's voices and listen how to integrate gender perspectives and how to listen to women's civil society and how to respond to what they hear from the women's civil society. So maybe that's another thing that kind of came to my eyes when I was reading this, is that oftentimes the women's participation is could be looked at broader angle.
Thank you. Who else?
Sandra, perhaps, I don't know if you would like to intervene, or from Gender Unit.
Thank you. So I don't really have a lot to add on what you were talking about. It was very, very interesting. One event, or what I would like to mention to you is that we at the gender section, I work on the Women, Peace and Security project. We are having an OSCE-wide roundtable event in the beginning of February, which is basically scheduled to give experts the opportunity to talk about what they have, the obstacles they have encountered when drafting a NAP, how to approach M&E, and gives basically experts from the OSCE region who are working on 1325 and in NAP implementation on how they can learn from each other and exchange ideas. So if you have not heard about this, I can also extend the invitation to you this week. Maybe this is of interest to you as well. And then we will also have specific capacity building workshops later on this spring. So yeah, I would be happy to see some of you there if you're interested or feel the need to. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think you can send it to me and I can spread it in the group. I think then kind of role as coordinator.
Because there are many NGOs in the intergovernmental group, so they might also be interested to participate.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Are there any others who would like to add? No?
Sorry, I've raised my hand, but yeah. You can go ahead. Yeah. Okay, let me finish then. I'm Naira. I'm the UN Peace and Development Advisor. And you can imagine through what I went through during this autumn. However, I want to raise the issue of peace building and confidence building as well, because it is probably the most challenging and the most sensitive. It has been, and it remains even more so. And there is this stereotype that women in this region and maybe all over the world are peace-loving beyond reason. And we need to somehow address this issue with the help of also UN 1325. All previous attempts, all previous projects around peace building for Nagorno-Karabakh conflict resolution have been largely criticized for not being linked to the government. Yeah, sort of, we had our club, we were meeting, and then we were not communicating effectively with the decision makers, with the authorities. And I'm very glad to see that our MFA colleague Karine joined us today and is taking notes. And I'm going to come up with some ideas on how we can build this bridge, because it's absolutely necessary. And women's voices I observed in social media during this heavy period were quite healthy and reasonable, I should say. And we cannot waste this potential, to be honest. And I would like to hear from you, colleagues, if you have any ideas in this regard. Thank you very much.
I would also like to add that, you know, this is the first national action plan when people from Nagorno-Karabakh are included, when we speak about localization, and their voices will be heard. Usually, as a recognized territory, this country has been isolated even by Armenia. And this is critically important. And we felt this importance now when we had a flow of internally displaced people, where we're saying a different definition, and nobody could, even UN, could not apply their assistance to these people. Because being unrecognized, it meant that they are also unrecognized in a certain extent legally. So neither children have been assisted because UNICEF doesn't recognize the definition, neither UNHCR was recognizing. So I was very happy that state it was before the war long ago, but government of Armenia introduced voices of people of Nagorno-Karabakh into this project and made them being heard. This is critically important. So when we speak about localization, also there was an element of people from the border areas in the action plan, which is also of a critical importance to hear, because Armenia is not only in a conflict situation or in a vulnerability only in Nagorno-Karabakh, we also have Tavush and other areas. So bringing the voices of these people, bringing their capacities into the and potential into this plan of action, this is very important. Karine, have you any other words, final?
I would like to add perhaps a little perspective on the localizing on the one side, which I think it's really important what you just mentioned, both on integrating perspective from Nagorno-Karabakh. On the other side, from the international community, I think what we have really to support all work on a broader regional level going on in the direction of negotiations to avoid a next step and next war or next aggression. And I think this is what we have to take back into our countries also, that the broader region, but also regarding other international, or name it directly, relationship to Turkey and other countries. I think this is an important point, and I think we have to bring back to our countries a lot of the pressing issues also of your conflict affected countries, because we had just the week before Christmas, we had the debate with our foreign ministry on the draft for our new NAP in Germany. There is no budgeting, there is no domestic issue, there is nearly nothing on anti-militaristic perspective, if I may say. And what regards disarmament, a little bit, a half a sentence in the prevention issue, nothing in participation. Because the argument of the ministry was it's not a root cause of lacking prevention if there are too many weapons around. So we have really to learn also from the analysis of the dangers and the challenges of a conflict affected country back to my country or other countries of the European Union, focusing also on remilitarizing the European Union and whatever. So there is a lot to learn on both sides.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it has to be addressed. We spoke about prevention. Of course, many issues of this conflict, the lessons learned from this conflict should be addressed in prevention, and they have a global scale. So
Gulnara, just wanted to add a short, I think what
can I finish? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I just finished the sentence, can I?
Oh, I thought you were finished. Sorry.
I was just saying that if we do not properly address the impact of this conflict, we are narrowing down the space of democracy. We have to find a really proper analysis and proper words and proper addresses. So that's okay. Floor is yours.
Yeah, just what Heidi was saying, I would like to underline the importance of having localized insights or localized reports on how people, mainly women, live in different places, in war, after war, before war, in preventive actions of prevention and participation, etc., etc. The local case studies are extremely important. And I think the other thing is that we have to have like kind of a translation, a line of translation from local experiences up to the international language, which is a completely different logic. So we then, for example, in Switzerland, would use local experiences, local case studies coming out from these localizing projects, using them, translated them into international, transnational language, and then using them again to pressure our governments. Because if we see even Armenia and Azerbaijan are not directly importing weapons from Switzerland, they still are benefiting a lot from Swiss war material production. They even found some parts of a drone. I don't remember the name of the part. In this drone, the drone coming from Israel, Switzerland buying also these drones from Israel, and etc., etc. So I think these very complex networks of interwoven interdependencies of buying and selling war material is extremely crucial. And so we really have even localizing as much as possible, because it's important to have these cases also to show how incoherent our policies are. It's important to have this ways, that dynamic, somehow a methodology to observe and influence these dynamics of different international actors.
Thank you very much. Karine, have you words?
Yeah, just a final few words. Once again, thank you for very interesting discussion. Thank you, Gulnara, for raising the issue of isolation of Nagorno-Karabakh people, which is a real challenge for us, because the people living in conflict zone is out of context, and the involvement in the implementation of such programs like 1325 is really very important. In the context of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, I want to underline that Armenia attaches special importance to ensuring the active participation of women in all stages of conflict cycle, and protection of women affected by the conflict. And women really do have a powerful role in terms of driving change towards peace, and the efforts related to security can be much more sustainable with equal participation in conflict prevention, settlement, rehabilitation, as well as in upholding sustainable peace. And in this regard, the confidence building is really very, very important. Absolutely. And thank you, Naira, for raising this important issue as well. So once again, thank you very much for this very, very interesting and useful discussion.
Thank you very much to everyone. That was really, really excellent start. We will take into consideration all of the suggestions, and we hope to meet again soon. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody.
See you soon.
Thank you.